Every prayer you've whispered while secretly doubting was dead before it left your lips, and the reason has nothing to do with whether you deserve the answer. You've been taught that God weighs your worth before responding, that some invisible ledger of your past mistakes determines whether your request gets approved or denied. By the end of this, you'll understand why the passage never mentioned worthiness at all, and why that changes how you approach every desire from this moment forward. The verse is Mark 11:24. Whatever things you desire, when you pray, believe that you receive them and you shall have them. Read it again slowly. The condition is buried in 6 words. Believe that you receive, present tense, at the moment of asking. The receiving is assumed as already done. The prayer is a confirmation, a claiming of something that consciousness has already accepted as real. This is where most people stumble. They read, ask and you shall receive as a transaction. You put in the request, and if you're good enough, God fills the order. Like a cosmic customer service line where your spiritual credit score determines whether you get approved. But the passage operates on a completely different mechanism. The condition is internal. It's about what's happening in your awareness at the exact moment you make the claim. Neville Goddard spent decades drilling into this single distinction. He called it the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The state where your consciousness has already accepted the reality of what you're asking for. You feel it as done, as already yours, as a fact of your existence rather than a hope dangling somewhere in the future. That feeling, that inner knowing, is the belief the passage demands. So why does this feel so difficult in practice? Because you've been conditioned to associate asking with lack. The very act of wanting something confirms you don't have it. You pray for abundance while every cell in your body vibrates with the frequency of scarcity. You ask for healing while mentally rehearsing your symptoms. The words say one thing, your state says another. And the law responds to your state every single time. Think about the last thing you genuinely believed would happen. A friend texting back, the sun rising tomorrow, your coffee being ready when the machine beeped. You held zero doubt about those things. Your body carried a settled certainty about them. You experienced them as done before they materialized in the physical. That settled certainty is the exact frequency the passage describes. The only difference between that mundane confidence and so-called miraculous faith is scope. The mechanism is identical. Goddard pointed to a pattern running through every biblical miracle. The recipients shared one quality, unwavering inner acceptance that the thing was already accomplished. The woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment, she didn't approach with a polite request. She had already decided in her heart that touching the garment would heal her. The decision preceded the touch. The belief preceded the evidence. And when Jesus responded, he said something that demolishes the worthiness argument entirely. Your faith has made you whole. Your faith. The operative force was inside her. He identified the mechanism plainly. Consider what he didn't say. He didn't say your clean record has made you whole. He didn't say your years of temple service earned this. He identified faith, the state of inner conviction, as the sole cause. The woman's history was irrelevant. Her social standing was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was the state she occupied when she reached out her hand. This principle cuts both ways, and that's where it gets uncomfortable. If belief is the condition, then every unanswered prayer reveals something about the state you were in when you prayed. You asked, but you asked from doubt. You requested healing while inwardly bracing for the worst diagnosis. You affirmed prosperity while your stomach clenched at every bill. The words were correct. The state was contradictory. Abdullah, Neville's teacher, demonstrated this with almost brutal simplicity. When Neville told him he wanted to go to Barbados but had no money for the trip, Abdullah's response was to close the door in his face and say, "You're already in Barbados." He refused to entertain the premise of lack. He refused to engage with the version of Neville that was still begging for permission from external circumstances. That closed door was the teaching. Stop negotiating with the physical evidence. Occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, and let reality reorganize itself around your assumption. The hardest part of this practice is the gap. The space between assuming your desire is done and seeing the confirmation in the outer world. During that gap, your senses scream at you. Your bank account contradicts your assumption. Your body contradicts your declaration of health. The people around you reflect the old story back at you because they're still operating from the version of you that existed before the shift. Every piece of evidence in the physical world argues against your new state. This is the test the passage doesn't spell out, but absolutely implies. Believe that you receive them means maintaining the inner state regardless of external contradiction. The belief must be sovereign. It must outweigh what your eyes report, what your circumstances suggest, what your logical mind calculates as probable. The moment you let the outer world overwrite your inner conviction, you've stepped out of the state. You've abandoned the condition. Persistence in the assumption is where spiritual discipline lives. Mental diet, the practice of monitoring and redirecting every thought that contradicts your desired state, is the daily work most people skip. They do the prayer once, feel inspired for 20 minutes, then spend the remaining 23 hours and 40 minutes mentally rehearsing why it probably won't work. The ratio matters. Consciousness is shaped by sustained occupation, the way water shapes stone. A single powerful session followed by hours of doubt is like watering a seed once and then salting the soil. A skeptic within the spiritual framework might ask, if belief is truly the only condition, why do most people fail at conscious manifestation? The answer lives in the word believe. English flattens the meaning. The biblical Greek is closer to trust completely, or be persuaded in the depths. Surface-level affirmation, while your deeper mind holds the opposite conviction, produces nothing. The subconscious, what Neville called the deeper self, is where the creative power sits. And the subconscious doesn't respond to words. It responds to feeling, to the lived sensory experience of the state you're claiming. This is why Neville emphasized the drowsy state before sleep as the most fertile time for impression. In that liminal space between waking and sleeping, the conscious mind's defenses thin out. The critical faculty that says this is unrealistic goes quiet, and the scene you construct in imagination, felt with full sensory vividness as though it's happening now, drops directly into the subconscious without resistance. One brief, vivid scene, felt as real, looped until you fall asleep inside it. That's the technology the passage encodes. The worthiness myth persists because it serves a function. It gives religious institutions a lever. If receiving depends on being good enough, then someone else gets to define what good enough means. They become the gatekeepers between you and your answered prayer. The passage itself contains no such gatekeeping. The condition is between you and your own consciousness, between the asking and the believing, between the desire and the inner acceptance that is already yours. Your history of failures, your catalogue of mistakes, your sense that you've somehow disqualified yourself from receiving, all of that belongs to a framework the passage never established. The woman at the well had a past. The thief on the cross had a past. The condition wasn't a clean record. The condition was a present tense state of total acceptance. And here's where the real discipline begins. Maintaining that acceptance when everything around you argues against it requires a kind of inner stubbornness that most people underestimate. You have to become unreasonable in your faith, unreasonable in the most literal sense, beyond what reason would justify based on current evidence. Because reason works from what is. Faith works from what you've decided shall be. They operate on different timelines. Reason extrapolates from the past. Faith impresses a new pattern onto the future. The daily practice is deceptively simple. Choose your desired state, construct a brief scene that would naturally occur if the desire were already fulfilled. A conversation, a sensation, a specific moment that implies the wish is done. Enter the drowsy state. Feel that scene with your whole being. Fall asleep in it. Wake up and refuse, calmly, persistently, to entertain thoughts that contradict the assumption. When doubt surfaces, and it will surface, acknowledge it the way you'd acknowledge a cloud passing across the sun. It's temporary. It's not structural. Your assumption is the sky behind it. The passage was never a promise contingent on your moral resume. It was a description of how consciousness operates. Ask from the state of having received, and the reception is guaranteed. Ask from the state of wanting and lacking, and you'll receive more wanting, more lacking. The law is mechanical, impersonal. It responds to the frequency you inhabit with the same reliability that a mirror responds to the face in front of it. Your prayer life transforms the moment you stop trying to convince God and start convincing yourself. The only audience for your faith is your own deeper mind. The only permission you need is the permission you give yourself to feel the reality of the answered prayer right now, before the evidence, before the confirmation, before a single thing changes in the outer world. The belief was always the bridge. You've been standing at the edge, asking someone else to build it. The materials were in your hands the entire time.